Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Taylor and I'm a US American that's been living and working in Germany these past few years. Today I've got something special planned. Like you guys, I've been kind of locked up in my house for the past few months. We're finally able to start traveling to places, going out, meeting in smaller groups, which is really nice. Of course, with the proper forethought and the proper regulations. And today I'm taking you to the largest bird park in the entire world in terms of the amount of species and the land that they use. So this is really cool and it's kind of a hidden gem. I know that a lot of my subscribers are German, so I hope that if you're in the area, you'll consider coming here as well. It's absolutely incredible. I've been here one time before and there's, first of all, everywhere you've got free roaming storks. So they actually migrate up to this area during the summer. So they're everywhere and they're nesting and their nests are huge and they make this that's not the right sound. They make this interesting noise. So it's so loud in there, you guys, because of all the birds, but it's kind of peaceful at the same time. Unfortunately, because of the current pandemic, they aren't doing any of their feedings or their shows, which is really sad because that's something that I really liked the last time that I was here. They share a lot of information about the birds that they have, about how they take care of them, about their conservation efforts. So that's something that I think that I'll miss out a bit on today, but I'm still really excited to show you guys everything that's inside. If you want, you can stay tuned till the end of the video and I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on zoos. I'll obviously talk about some of the advantages of zoos, conservation efforts probably being the top thing, but I'll also talk about some of the negative things about zoos. So if you're interested in hearing more about my thoughts on that, I don't want to tell anyone how they should feel, but just my personal feelings about it, just stay tuned to the end. Before we get going, just remember, if you like my content, if you like my videos, go ahead, click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Okay, let's get going. The Weltvogelpark Walsrode is actually between Bremen and Hanover if you look at it on the map, and this is actually a really great place to maybe take your family or go on a longer trip for a few days because you also have Heide Park, which is a theme park in the area. Here's a map of the bird park. As you can see, it's a very large park, and the first time we went, we only came for about 3 hours and it wasn't enough time. We ended up having to rush through the end, so I would really recommend coming here early so that you have enough time to see everything that the bird park has to offer, and you can maybe even see a few feedings or a few shows. One of the things that I love most about this bird park is that it's not even just all about the birds. There was so much thought put into creating this park, and it's more of a botanical garden as well. There are so many different types of flora here. It's just so visually appealing and so much fun to walk through that it just enhances the entire experience. Like I said, because of coronavirus, there are no shows today, but this is typically where they have their big show where they'll have birds flying over your head and in this big field, and they'll have a person that's up there and explaining more about the birds, and it's really, really cool to watch. It's unfortunate that they didn't have it today, but if you look also in the back, that's where they kind of have their food areas. They have a restaurant, which is nice if you're staying for the entire day. So you can kind of get a sense of the structure of the park. I mentioned at the beginning that there are storks everywhere. They migrate up during the summer to this park. And here you can see a nest and you can see the mama and papa feeding the baby. It's so cute. Like I said, the Weltvogelpark Walsrode is the largest bird park in the world. There are over 675 different species of birds at the park. They're from every continent. They're from every climatic zone. It's really awesome. You get to see them up close. There's always a small card next to the birds area, I would say, rather than cage for the most part. And you can read more about them, where they're from, what their diet is, and things like that. So it's really great for learning also more about the different species of birds. Most of the birds are kept outside in enclosements, but there are a few indoor areas where typically, for example, when the climate has to be different, when it has to be much warmer for the birds, that you'll venture then indoors. And those are typically the areas where the birds don't have as much space as opposed to the outdoor areas. And that's just something that I noticed when I was at the bird park the first time. The birds at this park are quite obviously accustomed to human presence. And because of that, they're not as shy, and they'll definitely not necessarily interact with the people there, but go about their business just right in front of you, which makes it really fun to see how they're active and what their behaviors are like. And you'll definitely notice that when you're there. Okay, one of the coolest things about this park is the fact that they have these free areas for the birds. This just means that you are kind of confined to a pathway and the birds are able to fly and roam freely around this building or around the area that you're in. In these areas, they have different species of birds that are able to kind of cohabitate in the same area, and it's just, I think it's a nicer way for us to experience wildlife without them having to be trapped in small cages, and I think it's something that a lot of zoos are sort of trending towards. I also noticed this when we were at the Leipzig Zoo. They had an area that was much more free roaming for the animals. There are 4 free flying areas that we're going to go in today. I think they call them like Freiflughalle. And the first one is the jungle one that you can see. And then we're going to go into one with these bright pink, like neon pink ibises. I don't know if that's the right plural form of ibis. There's one that's kind of replicating like the coastline with a wave machine. And then there's another one where you can actually feed sort of like a milk mixture to parrots. It's really cool. Hey you guys, I'm back home now. I'm sorry that I look disheveled. It's very warm in our apartment today. So like promised, I wanted to discuss some of the advantages and disadvantages of zoos and animal parks. I'm someone, or I like to think that I'm someone that really considers eco-friendliness and ecotourism before I decide to interact with nature or different species and things like that. This is something that I've given a lot of thought to, and it's something I think about before I go to animal parks and zoos, or before I have any interaction with animals when I'm being a tourist and traveling to different places. And because I did pay to get into the zoo, and having paid, I financially supported them, I think it's good to have this kind of discussion. So I want to start with the advantages, and the way I see it, there are 2 main advantages of zoos, in my opinion. The first of that would be that humans really get the opportunity to interact and learn about the animals. And yes, while this may benefit the humans, it's entertaining, whatever, I think it really does benefit the animals as well. I know this isn't true for all people, but I think for a large swath of the population, humans are more likely to be compassionate or have compassion for animals when they've seen them with their own eyes and when they've had the experience of interacting with them. And they're more likely to put their dollars and their voices behind conservation efforts. I mean, this is just the way that I think about it, and I think that a lot of people will be in agreement with me. And at a time where climate change and loss of habitat is leading to one of the major losses of biodiversity in history that we've ever seen, it makes it that much more important to have humans that are compassionate and to teach our younger generations about these animals and why it's so important to save them. The second advantage to zoos are conservation efforts. So here I'm a little bit split, because a lot of times, even when zoos have breeding programs, they're sometimes not even successful. And if they are successful, these animals are typically not even able to be released back into wildlife. And this conservation efforts are really only one small piece to the larger puzzle of how we can prevent this loss of diversity, but it is an important piece. I know that the Weltvogelpark Walsrode is a part of the European Endangered Species Program, and they've been successful at breeding a few bird species, such as the golden-headed quetzal, which they were actually the first to be able to successfully breed. But what I think is cooler is that they were able to breed eagle owls and actually successfully reintroduce them into the wild. So I feel like that is much more important than being able to breed them and then having to keep them within the system of zoos, because that doesn't do that much in terms of the long-term success of that breed surviving in wildlife. Moving on to disadvantages, I think that my main issue with zoos and animal parks comes with this idea of like bodily autonomy and freedom. I'm someone that believes that all species of animals are equal in terms that they deserve respect, they deserve, like I said, this bodily autonomy and freedom. In general, they just deserve life. I don't even know how to explain it properly, but I don't believe that there's like a hierarchy of animals that are more important or less important, and I don't think that humans are necessarily on top of that hierarchy, you know, like quite a few people do. I don't know if you guys have ever had the experience of going into a zoo and seeing an animal that's in a cage that's obviously not big enough for the animal. I mean, big enough is also like difficult because a lot of these creatures are roaming or migratory in the case of birds, but just obviously just not large enough for the animal to stay in, or that the habitat that they provide is not even similar to what they would have in real life. And it just like gives me a very uncomfortable feeling, and I feel like almost shame and guilt and like also a bit of disgust. And I know that zoos have started to do more. I mentioned in the video that Leipzig Zoo has like a whole area that's kind of like free roaming, and they try to find animals that would naturally coexist like in the wild. And I think that's great, but I think that zoos have a long way to come. And honestly, if a zoo can't afford to give all of their animals a good quality of life, then they shouldn't be operating. So I mean, everyone is going to have their own opinions about this. I don't want anyone to feel forced to have the same opinions I do, but I just wanted to have a conversation about this because I think it's really important. And I think it's important that we also hold these zoos and animal parks accountable to treat their animals like they would want to be treated in the end. So those are my 2 cents. I really hope that you guys like this video. I really want to do a few videos that show you what you can do around Germany. I know I have a lot of German subscribers, and because we can't really travel this summer, for the majority of us, it's great to know that there are options also in our own neighborhoods and in our own regions. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!